Welcome to Sons of Sandhill, Marcus May and Nathan May. What's up, brother?
Brother, what's up, man? How are you?
Well, I went to the beach today, so can't complain.
Nice. Nice weather, I presume.
It's getting there. It's been kind of up and down, but it's getting there. Um,
Yeah.
in the 70s, so that's a good thing.
Nice.
Out
Yeah,
of curiosity, how warm is it there?
up until really today, it was it even peaked in the 70s, but we had a little storm cycle move in. So actually, like the mountains got about 6 inches last night, and it was snowing up
Okay,
there. Down here, I mean, it was some snow, but it just melts. We have grass growing here. Spring is here.
there you go.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, y'all have some pollen. The
Yeah.
pollen out there is insane.
Yeah, I noticed it's even started bothering the baby. The other morning she woke up and it red around her eyes and just not happy. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, at least you get a little, I guess, a few more days of skiing in. Uh, I guess
yeah,
till
until
when?
until the 15th, and then I do have gear to go uphill without a lift. So if the base is still good, but it's melting off so fast because it's been so warm and didn't snow as much this winter. So it's definitely shaping out to be a pretty warm summer. So it's going to be fun. Looking forward to it.
Well, I will be out there at some point. So I actually enjoyed the summers out there. Really cool. A lot of
Very nice.
colors.
Yeah.
Just it definitely is different from an area that doesn't get very much cold. You have that just rejuvenate, rejuvenate, rejuvenating season that you don't typically get with a lot of other places. So I
Yeah.
really do enjoy that much. And the pollen though was crazy. Like I guess it was roughly 3 years ago. I mean, the amount of pollen that was. Oh man, I literally got sick. Like
Yeah.
it was that was one of the sickest I've ever been from allergies.
I forgot about that. I remember that now. Yeah, it can be when everything dies off and then everything blooms at once, you'll see it just sweeping in piles across, flat spots, parking lots on your car, whatever. And I mean, I know it gets bad in the South, but it can be bad.
Yeah, yeah. Well, cool. Well, hey, let's talk a little bit about some of our childhood here.
Alrighty.
We've been telling our story a little bit, going into we probably went a little dark last time around Easter and all those things, but there was definitely a lot of fun we had, and
Yeah.
there was definitely a lot of people that, or especially immediate family, that very much faced, shaped who we were. And I got really crossfaded last night, and started having some memories come back, which is always kind of fun, right? You go on a little crossfade trip, and you start having these memories, and oh man, it was very interesting. You know, and I've always said this about this even my generation, especially the upcoming generation. Very soft men, right? Very soft,
Yeah.
but who we grew up with were not soft.
Nope. Hell no. Not even close to soft.
I mean, it was interesting to see because if I recall correctly, both of our granddads, Pawpaw, granddad, were at some point alcoholics, right? And I, my firm belief, I know in the case of granddad, grandmother pretty much gave him an ultimatum because she was that kind of woman to put her foot down and
Mm-hmm.
be like, here's what's going to happen. I don't really know what happened in the other case, but he did quit drinking. But they both went to war. They both fought. and they both had some demons. You know, you saw it come out every once in a while, um, and but in a good sense, like I learned a lot from them. You know what I mean? Like I learned a lot from them. Um, both of them were like men of not very many words. They didn't say
Not
a
at
whole lot.
all.
Yeah. Which is interesting. You know, everyone in this day, oh, look at us. You know, we have
Yeah.
something to say. Uh, they didn't have much to say, but
No.
they said it in their own way, right?
Now that you talk about us having something to say, it hit me last night. I was like, if they were still alive, they would probably think this was so stupid, of us to do
Yeah.
the way they were.
Yeah.
They would never be into technology. They never were.
No.
Um,
No.
they wouldn't understand this.
But I think they would respect it at the same time because, like, Granddad especially was, very conservative when it came to his politics.
Yeah.
So was Pawpaw. He was extremely conservative. The world's going to shit in a handbasket kind of scenario. And I mean, can't really blame them because look where we're at.
No shit.
They were not happy about the way the world was going. And you know what I've learned, in my opinion, what I think has happened over the years is it, as people like, especially the World War II vets and the Korean War vets. Vietnam was kind of a weird period, and there's a lot of weird stuff that came out of that, you know what I mean? But
Mm-hmm.
you go back to like World War II, it was a legitimately fought war for the right reasons, defending our freedom, making sure that basically tyranny did not take over the world. Korean War was very similar in the sense it was kind of a spin-off of World War II. They believed in their war and they saw crazy stuff. But as these people have died off, no one's around to tell us, hey, this is what happens when you don't fight for freedom. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you're starting to see that. Like, people just think this is normal to live the way we do in America. This could be gone tomorrow.
Yeah. No, good point. I've thought about that because, growing up, oh, well, especially with our grandparents, you were always reminded of that at the right time. They would remind you of, a story or so that you're lucky and you should see the things I've seen. They would,
Like, and if I'm not mistaken, all of them went through the Great Depression.
Yes. Yeah.
Which, could you imagine if America went through a Great Depression?
Right.
I mean, dude, people would just be blowing their brains out on the street.
And it was
Just,
so common back then too for,
yeah,
people to commit suicide. So much less now, like your point,
of course, yeah, yeah,
it'd be insane.
yeah.
And I mean, it definitely shaped them, and that's why everything had value, even though if it was broken or. I mean, I guess probably grandmother was a little more worse than that than even Papa and Mama. They didn't. I don't know. They both had their own things they collected that they saw value in.
Yeah, but grandmother was definitely a hoarder.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
I mean, remember the dinners we would go to where she had food in a freezer that had been in there for no telling how damn long, and you would go to eat it, and you could just taste freezer burn, and
Yep.
you what are you supposed to say, right?
Couldn't throw that away, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
you get no,
yeah, it
no.
was funny. So you invite your guest over, family, and make it for them. And remember the candy in the candy drawer that would be so expired.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean,
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
I mean, I don't know if she ever threw anything away. By the way, I don't. I really question if she ever threw anything away. I think she had a yard sale maybe once every. I don't know if she did. I believe I remember her having a yard sale at one point.
She had, I remember one at least.
Okay. Yeah. All right. All right. Yeah.
And then so she gets everything out of the attic, and then you know we're young, so we start wanting some of this stuff, and of course she gives it to us. Mom was not happy, so we're like taking home. I'll never forget. We took home this massive stuffed animal doll, that was dry rotted so we got home and just ripped open, and thousands of beads went everywhere. Yeah. So
No, I mean it shows you the different thought process of the generations. But to their credit, they went through a Great Depression where money didn't have value. Essentially, I mean,
yeah,
money lost all of its value, and if that happens, you hang on to your possessions because you might want to sell them one day to make some money. I mean, that I think was the concept, and yeah, but it's very interesting to see. And she has some really nice stuff too that she collected that people like you and I would never see value in
yeah.
today, but she saw value in that at some point. Um, Granddad, I think, pretty much just had no idea what money was. I mean,
He wanted just toys. He
oh,
was like a kid at heart.
yes, yeah, yeah. No, he literally lived out his childhood he never had
Yeah.
as a 60-year-old man.
RC cars, and I mean, probably, gosh, you
Yes,
remember more, but I do remember he had a bunch of those. He always had some little gadget of some sort.
yes. It was like something new every week too.
Right,
Something new
right.
every week he was getting. Which what I understood was that she gave him an allowance.
Yeah.
And so, he would take that money and spend it on whatever he wanted. Well, I mean, he bought literally toys. I mean, to your point.
I'll never forget one time she gave him his allowance for the week. I had never, he didn't say much. He didn't show many emotions or expressions. He got this like big ass smirk smile on his face. And I was really taken back as a kid, and he put it away like he was ready to go. And then later that day he left and went and bought something. I forgot, some
Yeah.
little gadget of some sort.
Yeah. Well, I think if you look at just the way both of our sets of grandparents were raised, poor. They were just poor.
Yeah.
If you really want to get down to it, they were poor. I think both sides managed to get decent jobs that provided good retirements. And I think they knew how to save their money because of going through a Great Depression. They saved their money and they didn't spend. Like, I mean, you look around us today. I mean, I've even been guilty of it. You get some money. Oh, yeah, I've always wanted this. I'm going to get it. Do you really need it? Probably not. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
they pinched their pennies.
Yeah.
They saved their money. They got bargains on everything. Half the stuff they had wasn't even new. But that didn't matter because it wasn't a time and place to show that you were rich, I guess. I mean, that's kind of what people do today is just buy stuff, go in debt, and try to prove that they have more money than you based off of how they look or what they own. When in reality, they don't even own it. I mean, our grandparents had homes that were completely paid for. I mean, how many people can say that these days? You know what I mean? Like, I believe grandmother paid the house off in 7 years.
Yeah.
I mean, that's independence. That's independence. Now, she had her Cadillac. She had her Cadillac.
Now that you say that, I remember Dad told me that a couple times because I remember he made it such a big deal that she paid it off in 7 years. And now here I am shopping to buy my first house, just like, holy shit, you know. But
She always told me, she said, basically she lived off of her like 40-hour salary, or her salary, or 40 hours, however they were paid. Anything she made above that, she acted like didn't exist. And she would just throw it into paying off what she needed to pay off. Because what I understand is granddad was such a bad money manager that one day grandmother came home and, and the furniture store was picking up their furniture because they hadn't paid their bills.
holy shit. Wow.
And so she, I think that was the moment she took over the finances. She was like, nope, 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 nope.
Can you believe that?
uh,
I could just see the rage she probably had on him, you know.
I know,
Yeah.
right? You know, as much anger as he had, she had her own little right of anger, man, and she was not someone you wanted to mess with. Um, Kind of reminds me of my wife a little bit, but you know, you have that respect there. You're like, okay, all right, my bad.
Yeah. You know,
But yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting to see how because that was unheard of. That was unheard of for a woman to run the finances of a home, especially in those day and ages. I mean, that just wasn't what happened. The man was in charge. The man made the money. The man spent the money however he wanted, and she very much put him in his place. And I think it's interesting to look at both sets of grandparents because they all had their similarities to a certain extent. I mean, I would say both. I'll just, for the lack of better words, grandpas had their share of anger and issues, but the grandmothers, for lack of better words, were that equaling balance of like sweet and just meek, a little more meek, but grandmother was a little more aggressive than that.
yeah.
She was
I mean,
definitely a little more.
in today's world, in my opinion, she is so much more of a badass than some of these women that pretend they are for women's rights and all. I mean, she didn't give a fuck, and
Mm,
she did what she wanted and was very successful. And so, what record she was the first. Remind me, like manager of
like,
a facility.
yeah, she was the first woman foreman of
Yes,
Ampex, which was a large factory at that time. So she had
right.
made her way up. And she even told me that she made less money than the men, even though she managed them. And they would flaunt it in her face and show her. They would get their checks and put it in her face and say, "Look what I made."
Wow.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
mean, and I think that's why I have a lot of respect for her at the end of the day, because she took it in stride. And I guarantee if you compare their lives, she won.
Yeah.
She won. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. Much smarter than that. Wow. I did. Yeah. She only told me about the times that, like what it was like to manage people, and the time that she had that lady try to stab her, or had planned to stab her with a pair of scissors. Yeah. Just told me a couple stories like that. But yeah, I didn't realize that. That's crazy. Um,
Yeah.
Much more respect to her
Yeah.
for sure.
Well, I mean, and rightfully so. I mean, I can't imagine being in a management role, and especially that. I mean, in a factory. I mean, a straight factory where you're managing a team, and your own team members that are men make more money than you,
Mm-hmm.
but you are their manager. Like, I mean, it's messed up, man. I mean, but that's the way it was. That was the way it was. And I think a lot of what we've seen through our childhood with our grandparents that's the way it was a lot of ways. I mean, um, we saw two different dynamics though in a lot of ways. You had Papa and Mama, ruler of the house, Papa. I mean, 100%. He wants some coffee. Mama's going off to make him some coffee. You know what I mean? Like he was 100% the ruler of the house. Grandmother was actually the ruler of the house in the other side, in my opinion. And I think that she was just smarter than he was. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Now that you say that, yeah, very much so. Went further in school than he had.
And she just was smart. She was a smart lady, really smart lady, and fair. But you know, in both scenarios, you look back and think about what both the women probably went through, considering their husbands were alcoholics. And back then, it was okay to whoop your wife's ass. You know what I mean? Like that was normal. No one's going to say a word at today's age. No, I mean, and rightfully so. That should never ever happen ever. But back then, that was normal.
Yeah,
that was normal. And I've heard some stories. You know, I mean, and there was. I think the last time that grandmother ever even attempted to get harassed was when she was pregnant and he was drunk chasing around the yard. And eventually she turned around and said, I look, I know when you go to sleep and I will kill you. and I know for a fact that she meant that. You know what I mean? Like she meant she would 100%, had he like whooped up on her or something, she would have killed him in his sleep.
I believe it. I believe it. She, like you said earlier, it was someone that you wanted to err caution on. Like you didn't want to cross her wrong because at the end of the day, she didn't
Yep.
mean any wrong. But if you meant wrong to her, she'd make you pay.
Yep. Oh yeah, and you know the greatest thing about her is like she would get along with anybody. I mean, she had friends of all races. You know what I mean? Back in the day when that was not acceptable either. You know, that was not an acceptable thing. She had friends of all races, and everyone respected her because she was fair. I think at the end of the day, she was just a fair person. You know, she took what you put in is how she judged you. You know what I mean? Like she judged you by the character that you delivered, which is right. You know, I mean, that's how it should be. If someone's a piece of shit, then you probably should judge them the wrong way. I mean, but she very much did that the fair way. So it was cool to see. Whereas, you know, Granddad, you know, he had his own ways of doing things and he had his own ways of viewing things and tempers on both sides, man.
Yeah, for sure. I was just telling the wife the other day about how grandmother would talk to anyone because once mom and I are in the grocery store and mom goes, "Oh, there's grandmother. Go say hey to her." So she's looking at produce. I slip up beside her, act like I'm shopping, and she doesn't look over and just starts, "Man, this produce isn't get no good," just starts talking. She was that way. She would make a friend with anybody. But like you're saying,
Yep.
some of her best friends were black, and back when that was not okay.
No, at all. Yeah, yeah. No, she did. She made friends, and I think I look back at how grandparents influenced us. I mean, you know how your parents influence you, but our grandparents influenced us in a lot of ways, and she 100% influenced me in a very social way of making sure that I understood that it didn't matter what you looked like, how much money you had. It was all about your character. You know, it was all about character at the end of the day. And if you got a good character, be friends with you. I mean, to your point, she had two of her best friends. One was Puerto Rican, one was black.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking, this existed in the 60s and 70s. You know what I mean? This carried on through life for many, 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 many years when it was not acceptable, especially in the South.
Right. Yeah. That's why I think why we're lucky, you know, because in that time it would have been very common to have grandparents that would have completely tried to influence you in the other way.
Yep. Especially growing up and being born when they were, you know, that was all they knew. I
Yeah.
mean, it wasn't even necessarily how they felt, it was how they were taught. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then that carried through their whole life. But yeah, she was very, very fair. But she was also very blunt. You know, I remember once we were like in a parking lot or something. I was in her car. And this person was walking across the parking lot. She was like, "Man, they're fat." And I'm like, "What?" But I also had to take into consideration she used to be fat and had surgery. But she just spoke her body. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't judgmental in the sense of more of just like, wow, they're fat. You know?
Right. She said for how she saw it.
Exactly.
Yeah, you
100%.
know, I now that you say that, I remember how she would just eat like a little bird. She barely ate anything when she did eat. She always
Yep.
used a small plate because she never put much on there.
Yep.
Uh,
Oh man. And then, all right, well, let's get into the granddads. So granddad specifically, a man of hardly any words.
yeah.
I mean, talk about reclusive. He was the definition of antisocial. Did not want to interact with anyone unless he felt like it. If he felt like it, then he'd come out. But if he did not feel like it, I mean, how many times do you remember going over to their house and granddad would be in his room watching TV so damn loud the whole house could hear whatever show he was watching?
Yep. Because he's half deaf.
And he would show up for like 2 minutes to go get him a Coke and walk back to his room. You know, like that was his thing. Like he did not want. He was so antisocial. And I guess I'm gonna make a comparison here because on both sides there was such a extremes. Like you had grandmother who was this outgoing, get along with anyone. She could get along with anyone. Wanted to travel, loved people, just loved getting to know you. I mean, she knew how to conversate and pull information out of you about who you were. Very kind of psychological type of person. Granddad hated fucking people. Like, he literally, I feel like, hated people at the end of the day. Other side, they both were very like not social people, but you had one mama who was very sweet, just the sweetest woman I would have ever met in my life. You know what I mean? Like you could not think of a sweeter woman in the world besides mama. And then you have Papa, who was very gruff and you know could be mean sometimes, and just said whatever the hell he felt like saying. You know what I mean? So it was two like opposites in those situations, but I'll give it to them. They stuck it out. They stuck that shit out, man. In a day and age where people just get divorced over the stupidest shit, they stuck that out. They stuck it out. They stuck together. They made it work. And I'm not saying that, you know, they didn't have their ups and downs. Clearly they did, but it's interesting to see that dynamic in a world today where people just get divorced because, oh, well, I don't like you anymore. Like,
Yeah.
you pissed me off too much, so I'm done.
Yeah, I mean, seriously. And they told you to do the same. They told you it would be hard, but you stuck to it and it would work out. You handled it in your own way. And they did. It really is unbelievable. Because now what divorce rate's like over 50%. It's like towards 60, I
Yep.
think. It's
Yep.
pretty crazy.
Well, it also is a testament to why our parents are still together to this day. Because if I poll most of my friends, I can think of maybe 2 friends that their parents aren't divorced. And
I agree. And you know, it's an obvious difference.
it is. It's a huge difference because sometimes you just need to stick it out. I mean, everyone feels emotions. I mean, sometimes you don't like somebody. I mean, sometimes they upset you. Sometimes you don't like them anymore. But now it's like a whim. Like, okay, all right, well, I don't like you anymore. Let's get a divorce. I mean, this is the way this is. Back in those days when even women didn't have the rights they do today, I get it. It wouldn't have been as easy to divorce necessarily, but it was just the understanding that you made a promise to each other and you have kids and you're going to stick together and you're going to make it work. And I think that's what we saw from our grandparents, which translated to our parents because they both had a set of parents that stuck it out through the worst. Look, our parents have seen the worst of it. You know what I mean? I'm sure they've seen the worst in their parents, but they saw them stick it out.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And not to mention, let's see. So, yeah, granddaddy and grandmother, they got married within a week of meeting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. To the point that grandmother saw granddad come out of the shower for the first time and didn't realize he had 8 tattoos before they got married.
And one of them is of a naked woman on his arm,
I'm pretty
right?
sure all of them were naked women. Yeah.
Smells
If
just
you
like them.
remember, there was like a naked woman here,
Yeah.
here on his thighs and his legs. Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, yeah. He was a Navy guy, so he very much. But she did
Man, you
not
know,
know that he did not have those tattoos. I remember her telling me that story one time that he got out of the shower and she was like, "What the fuck?" Can
yeah.
you
And
imagine
then
that?
what
Like,
was
seriously, can you imagine that?
that would be, you know, it would almost be like, whoa. But they didn't. They didn't. I guess you said like, oh well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I'm saying, like, to the point you don't know someone enough to realize they have tattoos or whatnot. You know what I mean? Like, in this day and age, everyone like tells who they are before they even get fully together. To a certain extent. So, to your point, it was like a week later they got married, and she didn't even know enough about him to know he had tattoos.
Yeah, that is pretty crazy. No one would do that nowadays. Even the
No.
whole Love Is Blind show. I'm sure your wife watches that. It's much longer than that. You know.
Yeah, I mean, no kidding. Like, just put that in perspective. So, yeah, it's interesting because, well, first off, I couldn't imagine marrying someone in a week. Um, but they were married for at least 50 years. At
I
least
think it
50
was like
years they were married.
54.
Yeah.
I thought it was like 54. I remember their 50th anniversary. Remember when we did that
Yeah. Yeah.
picture frame for them and the dinner and all that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Crazy, man. I
Because that was
mean, just
probably the only
crazy.
time that we ate That was like the only time that I remember we ate in the actual dining room. That's crazy. You have a whole, set of china and a whole dining room set up, and pretty much, I mean, I only remember it being used once.
Well, what about the living room?
Oh yeah, that whole space back there with nice furniture. And that was probably like, 1,500 square feet just not being used.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Only special occasions, you know. The dining room and the living room were special occasions. Like you did not just go sit on that furniture. She would like tell you to get off that furniture. It was like
Yeah.
antique furniture. She had spent all this money on, and every once in a while she'd have her friends over and they'd hang out there. But I mean, that room never got used ever.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point.
No, I got in trouble a few times because we would sneak in there. It'd be all dark, kind of creepy like. We'd sneak in there and try to, come out the dining room side, and then she knew you'd been through there.
Yep.
You'd hear about it.
Yep.
Yeah, it was that area you didn't mess with. And for me, I was younger than you. Her computer. Like if I got on her computer and I started clicking the wrong things and I got into something she couldn't get out of and didn't understand how to, ooh, I heard about it. And I remember thinking, I will not do that again, because then mom would get on to me. And, yeah.
So were you old enough to remember the days that had the pool and we'd be hanging out in the pool, and every once in a while this would be this random blue moon moment. All of a sudden, Granddad would come out there with swimming shorts on, get on the diving board, dive on the pool, swim to the other side, get out, and go inside. That was the only time he ever used the pool. Do you remember that at all?
I want to think I remember like once when I was really young, because I think he went down the slide, if I remember right, and then he got out, kind of thing. He was not in there long at all.
Yeah, no. I mean, he would literally
kind of like
swim to the other side to get out. And I mean, that was it. That was the extent of his his adventure in a pool. He would dive in, swim across, go out, go home, go to his room. That was it.
pretty much like he did when we were sitting there talking. Like you said earlier, he'd come out, get a Coke. Sometimes mumble a few words, and go back in there.
Or he'd come out the house, the house, whistle at his birds. Cat call his birds. He taught us. He taught us his birds to cat call.
That's right, he did. Going back to the whole balance thing, between the two of them, you had to appreciate how much our granddads did not give a fuck at all.
Yes.
People say they don't give a fuck nowadays, but they do give a fuck. They did not. And then the other end of our grandmothers that did, you try to find a middle ground there. But I mean, I don't know.
Well,
I think it was a
I
good
think it takes
outlook.
a lot of patience on the woman's side. Like very patient women that that we had as grandmothers and mama, like very patient women. Because you're right, you nailed it. Like he gave zero fucks. Zero fucks. I mean, you go work with them in the wood shop, which I loved it. I loved going to the wood shop with him. Showing me how to like cut wood, how to build things. But he cut something wrong, and he'd be over there cussing and throwing stuff around.
Yeah, and so little patience, because I remember him trying to teach me, and he'd give me about, I don't know, maybe 1-2 mistakes, and then he lost it with me, at throw the whatever it was we were working across the room. Or once he took his weed eater apart, and the entire inner cable that spins the end came unraveling out. And I was old enough that I thought it was funny, and I laughed, and I thought he was going to kill me. He did not think that was funny at all.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, yeah. No, no. I have a great story about Paw Paw too. I guess it was the generation of the men. They did not have patience at all. No, no patience. That was probably the consensus of that generation of men. There was no patience, right? I mean, they didn't give a fuck. They had no patience. But they taught you things in the meantime, right? And they taught you how to be tough. Like they taught you how to be tough. Like, hey, you screw something up, you might get yelled at. I mean, that's kind of life. But I remember, Pawpaw had ponies, so he taught me how to ride a pony. And we're talking when I don't know, 6, 7 years old, something to that effect. And so he started teaching me how to ride ponies. And I had never been on a horse of any sort before that. And so I'd get on, and I'd start, he told me how to, rein them, and taught me how to spur them on, and taught me how to do all these things. But his favorite thing in the world would be, have the horse in a little trot, thinking I'm rolling along just fine, just roll along. And he would take a switch and I mean, slap the shit out of the back of the horse. And that horse would start bucking. And I'd be hanging over him and he'd be over there just laughing his ass off. Just absolutely laughing his ass off. I mean, I've gotten bucked off but I will say this. I will say this. I learned eventually how to control them. Like when they would start to buck, I learned how to rein them in and like kind of dig into them and control that. And so it was a lesson all the same. But no, he got so much entertainment out of that. I mean, I can't even tell you how many times he used to do that to me. He would just sit there and laugh his ass off as I'm over there as a kid hanging on this horse. Well, I mean, it was a pony, but you know what I mean? I'm only 6, 7 years old, so it felt like a big ass horse to me. And I've gotten bucked off of those things as a little kid. They'd just be laughing his ass off. Go catch the horse and bring it back, get back on. All right.
Pretty sure if Mom had caught him doing that to you, or even especially me, I don't think she would have found that so funny.
Probably not.
I don't know though. I mean, she had Mom, like, definitely, you see that she definitely grew up in the country, and they just had fun, and getting hurt was part of having fun. Yeah. And like, compared to Dad, it was such a big difference.
Oh, huge difference. Because you don't remember where they first lived. So, because I mean, we're going back to when probably like some of my earliest memories, right, of a childhood. It was going to Papa and Mama's house, and it was, I mean, you want to talk about country. It was country. It was in the middle of nowhere, isolated to a certain extent. All that part has obviously been built up now, but I remember the early days of it was a tiny little house in the middle of nowhere, kudzu everywhere, just country. And so they moved eventually to the city, kind of. And I remember that house for a little while. And then they moved to where everyone, remembers where they're at now. And that was still big enough property to have horses and stuff like that. But it was still next to a highway, and I mean, the horses start taking off towards the highway. And I'm like, hanging on for dear life.
Wow.
Oh man, it was. But I mean, he also taught me. I mean, like I said, Was that a little mean? Sure. What not? Maybe. Um, but at the end of the day, I learned how to control a horse. Like I learned, I mean, I had to because of I had to. Like if I didn't control the horse, I was either going to get bucked off or it was going to run off with me on it. And what am I supposed to do? So I learned to control a horse.
Yeah.
And he
Which
took
then later probably
good.
led on to you getting a horse, right? Because then
Yeah.
you had horses.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, if you're going to have an animal like that, a horse, you can't be afraid of
Oh yeah.
things like that.
Oh no,
Used to it.
he made sure the horses knew he was the boss. I mean, yeah, I've seen him do some things. He made sure horses knew that they had to listen to him, or animals in general. Like he very much controlled his animals, and I think he was trying to teach me that aspect of having animals, which probably has carried over into every animal that I've been around. I don't have a fear of animal anymore. You know what I mean? Like I just don't, because at the end of the day, you can't control them. Um, and so yeah, that was a lesson learned. Um, I mean, he's taking me fishing. He's taking me out in the middle of woods, shooting guns. We went and found an old moonshine still from God knows how long ago that was. Like, I mean, just random stuff. I mean, I used to love, like, I had my moments where it was just like, you didn't cross him. Like, you did not cross him. Whatever you did, do not cross him. And, because he taught you a lesson if you crossed him. Um, but he'd take me to get ice cream, take me to go fishing, take me to go shooting guns, and all 5, 7 years old. You know what I mean? So I respect that all the same. But he was a control freak for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Really, I don't have that many memories about him. Just a few before because I don't know, how old was I? Maybe like 7 or so when he died. Pretty young.
Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And by then there was, you know, pretty much my memories are just like playing with him in the living room with the other kids. But like going back to you played within his guidelines. You didn't
Oh, he
get
was
too
watching you.
wild, running around too much. Yeah.
He was watching you. Yeah, he was always watching you. But the best part would be like, and I guess this is where it works. Like, Mama loved to cook. Obviously, cooked really, really good, and she would serve breakfast, or that was typically the meal that we got most of the time when we go see him. And he was a different person. He was sitting down there, enjoying his food, and like that's the aspect she brought for him. That like evened him out. You know what I mean? Like it evened him out, and those were some of the best memories. Was going and just having this feast of bread as a kid. When you're like starving 24/7 as a kid, like you had this whole spread of bacon and biscuits and everything you can possibly think of. That was great. That was great.
Yeah. No, those are some of my favorite memories for sure. Like, I mean, it makes you really miss that man because no one beat that even. Like none of the children, their children, they got passed down. Mom's a great cook, but no one has ever mimicked what we had.
Well,
That was
Mom
pretty
doesn't
fun.
cook with like lard.
Yeah,
Like, this was real Southern food.
that's true. That is true. Actually, funny story. A few months back, I was making breakfast for me and the wife, and I thought, man, it'd be pretty nice, Mama here shortening in eggs. I'm sure my wife would enjoy this, and that is the complete opposite reaction I got. I love it. Tastes good. No, I heard all about it. And I'm like, you didn't grow up? Like, no, my grandparents never did that. All right.
It's definitely a deep South thing. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it was a deep South thing. But man, that food was so good. Oh man.
was.
Oh, I mean, she made the best breakfast. I don't know if anyone can replicate the breakfast that she used to make, and that would be my favorite moments because they would know what we were coming, right? They knew we were coming. I'd walk in that house and smell bacon, sausage, and biscuits, and it's like, oh yes, you know. And as a kid, you know, you can eat as much as you want. You know, when it's good, when you love it, you can eat as much as you want. And oh man, those were some of my best memories. Was walking in her house and smelling that food. Like it just, oh man, it. I still can smell it to this day. You know what I mean? Like
I
it was
know.
such a great memory. And then everyone would be just chill afterwards because you know you had. I mean, it was a feast. It was literally a feast, and
It
everyone would just
was.
chill.
Yeah, they really did. And eventually took a nap, you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
It I think about that from time to time, going up those steps, knocking on the door, and that aroma hitting you. Holy cow, that was good.
That doesn't happen anymore, you know, and that's the cool thing of that. You
No.
know, on the other side, grandmother didn't cook, so like
No.
that was the grandparent that cooked and made like legit food from scratch. Grandmother, once again, going back to what we were talking about earlier, you know, had frozen food that that she cooked for everyone that was probably like 2 years expired. Um,
Yep, exactly what would happen. You know, and some of the meats weren't even the same, you know, just a little of that, a little of this, just whatever she had left over, pretty much. uh,
I will say this though, Granddad had one thing he cooked, and I've tried to mimic it to this day, just because I have never seen it the same way again. But his one thing that he would cook was French fries. But he did not.
yep.
So you remember, grandmother loved her stuff crunchy. She liked borderline burnt food, which I've inherited that. I love my stuff crunchy, that borderline burnt. But he like made his French fries like just soft with basically no crunch to it, and I can't replicate it. I can't replicate
Hmm.
it. Maybe it's because I don't understand it exactly, like what he's going for. But I did enjoy that because he would go in there and that would be the one. That's the one thing he would cook. Like I don't know if he cooked anything else, but he could make these French fries, homemade French fries, and they were just soft and salty. Oh, it was good. It was really good.
Yeah, no, I do remember that. I don't think he did make anything else. And they were really good. It, like you're saying, that perfect texture. It was everything. I don't think he used like a lot of oil in the bottom. It was
Yeah,
like
he
a thin
steamed
layer.
them. I think
I
he really
remember it.
steamed them because I remember he had like a top on the pan. So I think he kind of
Yeah.
steamed it and just kind of cooked it through moisture. But that was the one thing he would cook randomly. Um, once again, two extremes. You know, grandmother, she made toast. Oh man, she pretty much borderline burned it, and she would say that like she
Yeah.
liked her stuff that way.
It would. It would be almost, very, very dark brown
Yeah,
for
no,
sure.
that's why I've like
On the
half
toast.
burned food sometimes, and everyone in my family is like, "What is this?" I'm like, "This is great."
Man, the first time I ever made toast for my wife, I mean, I kept it pretty light. I wanted to have some type of, light brown texture on the top. And she's like, can you remake me some toast? It's burnt. I'm like, burnt? No. But so now I've learned I cook for two people essentially,
Yes.
how I like it and how she likes it.
Yep. What you got to do is you have to teach your kid the way she kind of taught us. You know what I mean? Like you got to teach them what they actually do like. Like you tell them what they like.
Then you have more people on your side.
Yes. Oh man, this is great. It's been some good trips down memory lane. Um, you know, despite it, once again, grandparents very similar in a lot of ways. The granddads being very gruff and impatient and you know anger problems, very much anger problems. But then the grandmothers being the opposite. Although, like I said, grandmother was very one of a kind. Like she didn't take anything from anybody. She didn't. She didn't take anything
Not
from
at all.
anybody.
Yeah, and you got to respect that.
Yep. And I think that, and we're running out of time here, but I think at the end of the day, though, that really helped me respect women. You know what I mean? Like she taught me respect in women. Like, look, I mean, this is my shit. Like I did this, and I'm the reason we're here, and kind of very much put that in my head. And you want to talk about feminist, and she would never agree with the feminists today. One, she would never agree with them, but she taught me a very much a healthy respect for women and understand like it is equals, and it is two people working together that have different strengths, and it's not just because of your gender. It very much is because of your intelligence and your work ethic and all those things, and that very much is what she put in my head that I've never lost.
Yeah, no, good point. And would go back to we always would reflect to how it was for them before then. Before they had the opportunity with the Great Depression. Once they had the opportunity, seizing the moment and paying a house off in 7 years. I mean, you saw that. She was so proud of it. They got a plane to fly over and take a picture of the house, and then the picture in the house.
Man, I forgot about that. Wow. Yeah, you're right. Damn.
Oh man.
Shit.
But hey, I'd be pretty proud too.
Yeah,
7 fucking
exactly.
years.
I mean, and when she died, I mean, she had money. You know what I mean? Like she actually had money. But I mean, if you had asked her for anything on any given day, she was broke. I mean,
Yeah,
she couldn't afford it. She bought the
that
cheapest
is
shit
very true.
possible. You know what I mean? And hey,
Yeah,
but I think that's the problem with the world today. And
they want it now.
they want it now. They want the notoriety of it. You know what I mean? They want that recognition that, hey, oh, this person has this big ass house, and this person has this nice ass car, and this person has this, and they compare themselves to everyone else. When grandmother, in all reality, just like she wanted certain things and she got those because she could afford them, but she didn't do it for any other reason other than that. She didn't go buy a Cadillac because that was the coolest car in town. She liked the Cadillac. Like that was the car that she thought that she wanted. And she paid for it with cash.
Yeah.
Whereas nowadays, it's all about keeping up with the neighbors. And so I very much respect that. And I hate to. I mean, I see it. I see it all the time where I live. People are trying to just keep up with each other and like show what they're made of through what they actually have. And when it's all said and done, possessions don't mean shit, man. They all depreciate and they all go away. They all rust away. When you die, someone's going to sell them. Like, it doesn't really mean anything at the end of the day. Like that's not your reason. But I will tell you this: I don't think she ever had to worry about what she had to, whether she had the money to pay for a bill or not.
Yeah, and that's all that mattered, really.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, it's been fun, brother.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Nice trip down memory lane.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's always a fun thing to do. I enjoy doing it.
And hey, as we tell these stories, people will learn a lot more about us and learn exactly who we are and why we think the way we do. Because I don't think a lot of people grew up the same way we did. I'm sure there's plenty out there, but based off of what we see today, I don't think a lot of people grew up the way we did.
Oh, that's very true.
But hey, till next time.
See you, man.
See you.